Talking to the Public Servants Association of South Africa, which has vowed to cripple the economy with its upcoming strike. Government, the employer, is offering a 7% salary hike, but the union wants Minister Ayanda Dlodlo to agree to a 10% hike. The trade union, which has over 230 members, has promised a day of rage on the 11th of June based on what it's calling government's failure to present reasonable salary offers. Well, we're joined now from our Pretoria studio by the Director of Collective Bargaining at the PSA, Letsatsi Modise. Good evening to you and thank you for talking to us. Now, you've said that this strike is going to be unprotected and that there are going to be consequences for members who participate.
No, indeed. The first thing that we want to deal with being called arrogant. To state categorically that the minister has demonstrated an unwavering the negotiations process throughout. Now, the negotiations came to an end on the 18th of May. And on the 21st, the employer then signed off the final offer. In terms of the procedures of the council, that offer should sit there for the next 21 days for unions to then can take the offer or indicate otherwise. The 21 days lapses on the 19th. And we only expect that it is only after the secretary has retabled the matter at the council, if it doesn't enjoy majority, that parties can then decide on what course of action to take. So it is in that light that we are saying the PSA strike is unprotected because it goes against or it transgresses actually the basic rules of the bargaining council, and these are the rules that they would have shaped as well. And we want to appeal to them to refrain from that it is premature. But on the issue of total shutdown of the state, we are still confident that come Monday, the state will still be functioning at full capacity because there is no protected strike that will be taking place on Monday. And in the event that there is an unprotected strike, we'll be left with no choice but to implement the necessary measures to manage that. Because when employees participate in an unprotected strike, that's misconduct.
Mr. Modise, I have to come in there.
To appeal to the PSA that we don't go that route.
Mr. Modise, I have to come in there and say, of course, the PSA's General Secretary, Tahir Maepa, who was just on air a moment ago, he says that it's untrue that the strike is illegal. But no matter, we are here now. These talks are at an impasse at this stage, are they not?
The talks are not at an impasse. Remember, PSA is just, 17% or so of the labor parties. Now, it can't be an impasse when one union breaks out, as it were. That's why you still have unions pending their signatures on the current agreement. So to say there is an impasse would be incorrect. The PSA is not happy with the offer on the table, but that does not necessarily suggest that the whole of labor is not happy. In fact, nobody is happy with the deal. It's just that under the circumstances, it has been seen to be a more reasonable deal, taking into context the totality of the economic situation where we are. I mean, we just received a report now that the GDP is shrinking, we are not growing. And as you said earlier when you were interviewing the PSA, that the government relies on taxes for revenue purposes. So the revenue streams are also drying out, but notwithstanding that, the government has seen it fit that it is important to keep public servant salaries, keep them in accordance with the cost of living and adjust even beyond the cost of living, because the deal that is currently on the table, it's a cost of living plus real increase, as it were.
But they've also insisted that they've given government, 9 months, and they're saying in that time they have not been given any assurances that government is in quite the tight position they're being told now. They've also blamed the situation in general as far as the South African economy is concerned on poor policy decisions. They've blamed corruption in government, and they're saying it shouldn't be the workers who are made to pay.
On the question of the length of the negotiations, of course, it took some time for us to arrive where we are. But you would remember that we started the negotiations around October, and then you've got December, and in between the negotiations, parties must go back to their principals to refresh mandates and so forth. So that's why it's not that we were staying away from the bargaining council, but the negotiations were continuing. It's just that in some instances, and it depends, others will take the whole month while mandating, others will take 3 weeks and so forth. So all of those processes affect the length of the negotiations themselves. And to the extent that the PSA is saying that the workers should not bear the brunt, we don't think that this deal is a punishment on the workers. This deal is crafted out of the economic situation that we find ourselves in. And if you go back to our 2010, 2012, 2015 agreements, there has been consistent above inflation increases afforded to the public servants. And I think that trajectory has been continued, notwithstanding the difficult fiscal space that we find ourselves in. So it can't be that they have been punished for mismanagement elsewhere.
Nonetheless, Mr. Modise, we do find ourselves in this situation. I understand, of course, healthcare workers will not be joining in the strike because we know they're essential staff. But we also know that from what they've been threatening, South Africa's borders, the courts, water workers are all expected to take part in the strike. I mean, they really, as they say, are meaning to strike where it's going to hurt the most.
We want to reiterate the fact that that action will be unprotected. However, we would have contingency measures in place that would make sure that the state service delivery machinery runs it at full capacity, no matter what happens on Monday.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. And of course, we were talking to Mr. Modise, who is, of course, the director responsible for the bargaining in the Department of Public Service and Administration, talking to us about the planned day of rage by the Public Service Association. Now, President Cyril Ramaphosa